work.
This is our next topic. Our next topic is demand and supply. So we have a good few things that we have to cover in this topic. It's quite a prominent question in the junior cert. It comes up quite a lot. So there's a few things I want to go through for both this topic and in terms of looking at how to answer some of the questions for junior cert exam questions over the last year that they introduced the questions for the new junior cert. So what is a market? So demand and supply. Beginning of that, we're focused on what a market is. A market's a place where buyers and sellers connect with each other in order to trade or exchange goods and services. Now there's a number of slides that I'm going to need you to take down, and this is one of them. I would suggest doing this at the end rather than pausing and playing constantly. You can go back over at the end and just write down now slide number 3 needs to be taken down. So a market's basically where buyers and sellers meet in order to exchange goods and services. The most common example would be your shop, but we'll look at it now. There's many more examples. So our shop is our final market, place where finished goods and services are bought and sold. So you can see there is a supermarket, any kind of business like that where you can go in and buy a finished good or service is seen as a final market. This is another slide. There's the next couple of slides. I'll tell you at the end what slides to take down because there will be a few important terms in this that I'll need you to know. Factor markets, so where the factors of production are bought and sold. So factor of production, so the example they're giving there is a stock market. Stock market is where you can buy shares in companies. Another factor would be if we were looking at land. So if you're trying to buy land off of somebody, that would be in a factor market. Or potentially getting new staff in from abroad or off a different company, or trying to merge two companies together. You're trading with maybe with labor or with land, capital or enterprise. So you're dealing with the factors of production. Again, this will be another slide. From now on, I'm just going to kind of tell you that at the end. The third one we're looking at is commodity markets, where raw materials used in the production of goods and services are bought and sold. A lot of this is your general agriculture. So if you looked at something, let's say like I don't know, Glennisk yogurts, just something I had there earlier today. So your yogurt, something you'd buy in the supermarket, is obviously bought in our final market. If you go into the aisle, you see where the yogurts are and you buy strawberry flavored yogurts. The commodity market is where somebody's obviously coming together and gathering these raw materials. So obviously strawberry yogurt is produced with strawberries. So you'll have somebody that's going out and they're growing strawberries, picking the strawberries, and this is a commodity market. So the company that's going off and producing, Glennisk, or a company that produce yogurts, they're contacting somebody who produces strawberries. They're buying the strawberries off that person. So this is a commodity market. Again, I'll get to the slides you need to take down at the very end. So big focus in this chapter, demand and supply. And for the new junior cert, really common questions. Because a lot of it can be based around your general understanding. So they'll ask you questions that are relevant to real life. They could ask you about a concert tickets. If the demand goes up, what happens to the price? What happens if the supply goes up? What happens to the price? So we'll be looking at this in a good bit of detail. So demand refers to the quantity of a product that buyers are willing to purchase at any given time. So the demand for something is generally how much or how many people are willing to buy a product. So if you take something as simple as a new iPhone, I don't know what iPhone they're on, I think it's the iPhone 12. So let's just say the iPhone 12 comes out at the beginning of January 2021. The demand is probably quite high. The demand for the iPhone 12 would be much higher than the iPhone 6, which may have come out 80 years ago or whatever, whenever it came out. So the demand is obviously the interest that people have in purchasing this product, and that's going to affect the price. The demand for something like the iPhone 6, which is outdated compared to the newer models, that demand is going to be low. Not many people are right now going out and buying a phone that's maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. Whether it's a newer, brand new phone, much more people are willing to pay for it. And if much more people are willing to pay for it, then the price generally goes up. Actually, one of the easiest examples we'll see, and one of these examples we can use to think of this, would be masks. You can go into shops now and you can buy, good quality masks that might be, designed in a certain way or whatever. You could pay £5 for that mask. There is no way you would have paid that 2 years ago. The demand was much, much lower. And if there was a custom design mask, it might have been €2. But because the demand is so high, because so many people are buying masks, they've just bumped up the price. They're so much more expensive now compared to what they were 2 years ago. So demand refers to the quantity of a product that buyers are willing to purchase at a given price. Effective demand is a willingness to buy backed up by an ability to pay. Effective demand is real or actual demand. So I would love to buy a Lamborghini. A Lamborghini is a car. It might cost me anywhere between 100,000 to a couple of million. I would love to buy a Lamborghini, but I do not have the money to pay for such an expensive car. I don't have that kind of money. So there's no point in me expressing my interest in buying a car when the car costs a couple of million. I don't have the money to pay for it. So what effective demand is, it's looking for people who are willing to buy something and they can actually pay for it. And that's the real demand. Otherwise, everybody's interested in buying a yacht or a private jet or $1 million car. But very few people, might be actually able to afford that. So just to get into more detail on this in terms of how consumers, because we as consumers who are buying these products, there's a consumer behavior assumption. So consumers have to make the choices to get, I'm just going to go through it first and then talk about it. Consumers have to make choices to get the best use of their limited resources. Generally, our limited resources would be money. So if everybody in the class had €100 and you were all going on a school trip somewhere, you decided to go shopping on that school trip, you have €100. That's a limited resource. You don't have an unlimited amount of money. You have €100. So you have to make the best choices you can to spend the €100 the way you would prefer to spend it. Consumers are rational, which means they will choose the cheaper options if offered two similar goods at different prices. If I can buy petrol at one petrol station and it costs me €40 in total to get 30 litres, if it costs me €42 in the petrol station next door, I'm obviously going to go to the cheaper one. That's being rational. You're making a logical decision. If two things are available to you and one is slightly cheaper, you're going to go for the one that's slightly cheaper. Consumers will try to get as much benefit or satisfaction, known as utility in economics, as possible from their limited resources. We'll be looking at that a bit later on. So you're going to try and get as much benefit or satisfaction generally from the limited amount of money you have, which is obviously going to affect your decision making. This is something I'm just kind of building up to. We'll be looking at this in more detail as time goes on. The benefit or satisfaction that a consumer receives from consuming a good or service decreases over time. This is known as the law of diminishing marginal utility. I have a very interesting story on the law of diminishing marginal utility, even though it seems like a business term. Before I went to college in the University of Limerick, and before I went there, there was an open day. So, like an open day you would have seen for secondary school. For this open day, anyone who shows an interest in attending the college can go. And I went to the business room where one of the lecturers was standing up at the top of the room, and he was trying to teach people about the law of diminishing marginal utility. So this is a law, by the way. It's looking at something that's saying that people's happiness or satisfaction decreases over time with a good or service. A simple example, if I gave you the keys to a brand new car, you're delighted. 2 years later, you still have that brand new car, you're no longer as happy. So what he did as an experiment is he had multiple different packets of those kind of multi-packets of Mars bars. And what he did is he offered anyone to come up to the top of the room, come up to the stage, next to the lecturer, and take a seat. And what he would do is he'd give you the full packet, the full multi-pack of Mars bars. And he told you to eat as much Mars bars as you can. in a minute. And so obviously people went up there, you know, a couple of different guys went up there. The first Mars bars they eat, they enjoy. After about 6, 7, 8 Mars bars, you can see that they're no longer enjoying Mars bars anymore, and they're sick of eating them. And that's the law of diminishing marginal utility. So basically, if I'm interested in buying something and I buy it once, generally over time, the more and more I buy it, the chances are that I'm no longer going to be as satisfied with that product. And that's what that law is, because sometimes it can be a bit complicated to think of. I'm going to finish it up there because this is the beginning of a new chapter, beginning of the chapter that I want to focus on, and the slides here are very important. So from slide number 3 down to slide number 9, I want you to take all of these slides down. So slides 3 to slides 9, what we looked at today. So the first one here is what is a market, all the way down here to consumer behavior assumptions. So taking all these slides down into your notes copy, we have a couple more classes where we're looking more in detail at demand and supply, especially regarding kind of junior cert questions and how this topic kind of will come up in the junior cert, because it's a much more commonly asked question in the new junior cert than it was in years gone by. Slides number 3 to 9 take down in your notes copy, and I'm going to put up a bit of homework on Google Classroom.